Hello, good evening and welcome. My name is Kojo Yankson. I'm glad you're able to join us on another edition of PM Express. So it's another week and yet another conversation about the size of government has been raging. It all started off in Parliament with an accusation which government has responded to, but still grey areas remain. So tonight we settle it once and for all as we ask the all-important question about presidential staffers. Are we actually employing more or less? Tonight, we set the record straight. But how did it all begin? Conversations about how many people are employed at the office of the president and, by extension, the office of government machinery have been raging on through every administration. We can look through the historic figures here. In 1996, under President Rawlings, there were 524 presidential staffers at the office of the president. And you can be sure that there were complaints about that. In 2005, it went up to 696 staffers under President Kufuor, and he actually reduced the number to 613 over a period of 3 years. On record, he is the only president who, so far, has reduced the number of people working at the office of the president. In 2010, under President Atta Mills, we had 625 presidential staffers. By the time President Mahama took over, and the next time it was recorded in 2013, 3 years later, the number had risen to 679, and over a period of a year, it rose by a further almost 15 to 692. And under President Akufo-Addo, a number of 998 was presented to government last year for approval for employment at the office of the president. 998. We now have the 2019 budget. But according to the minority, there is an attempt to increase this number. Today we will analyze this. We will find out whether this accusation by the minority is in fact true, because the Ministry of Information has just yesterday come out to debunk that claim. They suggest that actually the number is coming down. My guest and I will iron it out together right after these messages. Welcome back. Tonight, we have that all-important conversation about the size of government, presidential staffers, more or less. We settled that tonight. And of course, we're going to separate fact from conjecture. So first, let's lay down some facts. The president himself admits that times are hard. He says we are living in difficult times. He said this in the United States. Government also admits readily that there is pressure on the public purse, and this, they say, is due to government's huge expenditure pattern. These indeed are the facts. There are more facts. Economists have been cautioning that, look, we have two choices here. Either we increase revenue or we cut expenditure. That's just common sense. And we do know, another fact, that government could not realize their revenue targets for 2018. Now there are some claims being made. The minority is claiming that that figure of 998 that we saw earlier, that was the number of staffers in 2018 at the office of the president, will increase to 1,614. Another claim is that, then this claim is by the information minister, that actually the number will reduce or is reducing. Minority is accusing the information minister of peddling falsehood, and that is what they said in the most recent press conference that they held today, and it was addressed by the ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Ministry, and that is Mr. Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa. He's the former Deputy Minister for Information. So the question is simple. Who is telling the truth? And that is a question we're about to answer with our two guests who have been gracious enough to join us tonight. We're very honored to have with us in the studio Mr. Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa. He is, as I introduced, a ranking member on the Foreign Affairs Ministry. I have a feeling committee, forgive me, Ministry. And I have a feeling you are on a few other committees in Parliament as well, aren't you?
Yes, the Appointments Committee as well.
That's right, Appointments Committee.
Well, good to see you.
It's great to see you too. It's been a while.
Thank you.
Of course, Mr. Okudzeto Ablakwa is a former minister, a deputy minister for education. Joining us from the Ministry of Information, he's a government spokesperson, Mr. Eric Amwaku-Chum. Very nice of you to join us. How are you doing?
My pleasure. I'm doing well. How are you?
Not bad at all, thank you. Now, let's get straight into this. Okay. Now, I want to start with you, Mr. Okudzeto Ablakwa, because you've now gone on record twice on this issue. First time was on the floor of Parliament, in the presence of the majority, where you made these original claims. Now, I want to be accurate. It is reported by 3 News, I think they have a website, that your claim was that the government is going to increase the number from 998 to 1,614. That is what is reported that you said on the floor of Parliament. This is being refuted. And according to the Information Ministry, the number is actually, the ceiling that was set was 1,690 something, and it's coming down to 1,614. So it appears you may have misread the figures according to the Information Ministry, or you are up to mischief, as they say. Which is it?
Well, thank you very much, Kojo. Good evening to you, to Eric Chum, and to our distinguished viewers. I believe that this is not a matter for us to live within the domain of he says, I say, and opinions then are thrown at the forefront. It's not a matter of opinion. It is about the facts. What do the documents say? I made the statements I made during the 2019 budget statement and economic policy debate in Parliament last week. And I referred to page 216 of the 2019 budget, and I have a copy of the budget here. I referred in my contribution to the debate to Appendix 7. Appendix 7 is headed MDA Staff Establishments and Cost 2019, page 216 of the 2019 budget.
Right.
The first entry, entry 1, Office of Government Machinery, ceiling of staff 1,614.
Yeah.
And this country is expected to come up with 110 million cedis to take care of these 1,614 workers at the Office of Government Machinery. So this is where the figure is coming from.
Right.
I didn't conjure any figure from the skies. And I stated emphatically that Ghanaians will be outraged at this increase because the last report that Parliament has on the Office of Government Machinery puts the figure at 998. And that was presented.
Let's clarify. Is that figure for the Office of the President or the Office of Government Machinery?
Good question. It is the figure for the Office of Government Machinery. The Minister of Information yesterday sought to, he just ended up in a cloud of confusion. And over the course of this program, I'll point out to you why the Minister of Information is so confused. I have the report to Parliament here, dated 22nd March 2018, signed by His Excellency the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. And the President provides the breakdown. If you don't mind, I can read.
Sure.
Excerpts. Pursuant to Section 11 of the Presidential Office Act 1993, Act 463, I submit herewith the annual report on the staffing position of the Office of the President for the period 7 January to 31st December 2017 for the attention of Parliament.
Right.
The report covers the following areas: the number of presidential staff employed at the Office of the President during the period, 2, the ranks and grades of such staff, and 3, employees of other public services assigned to the Office of the President.
Right.
So the President then proceeds to reveal that he has 9 ministers of state were at post as at 31st December 2017. Vide attached Appendix A. Then he adds 27 presidential staffers at the Office of the President. It's listed as Appendix B. I have all those appendices here.
Yeah.
President proceeds further. The report shows the list of other junior political appointees in the Office of the President, totaling 256.
Right.
See Appendix B2.
Yeah.
Then the next paragraph. Employees of public sector organizations assigned to the Office of the President include civil servants of various classes: administrative, executive, clerical, records, secretarial, budget, supply, material management, presidential household, Department of Parks and Gardens, Ghana Health Service, accounting and data processing, and audit service, etc. The total number of these categories of staff was 706, as shown in the attached as Appendix 6.
Right.
So when you add these figures together, you get the 998.
Okay.
Now remember that Section 11 of the Presidential Office Act stipulates that within 3 months in the new year, the President is obliged to report to Parliament on the staffing position of the previous year.
Right.
So as we speak, we don't have the 2018 actuals. We only have the 2017 actuals.
Okay.
So I could only have referenced what Parliament has in terms of the actuals. And so I referenced this report, the 998, which became a matter of public discussion, and there was some public furore and uproar. So for the Minister of Information to claim that my assertion that we are moving from 998 to 1,614 as supported by the 2019 budget is false, is shocking.
But let's double check this. What is the description against the 1,614?
Office of Government Machinery.
Office of Government Machinery. And you've just read from a letter that refers to Office of the President. At no point in your reading did I hear you say Office of Government Machinery. It would appear that this letter, 2017, is referring to the staffing levels at the Office of the President. In fact, the heading says it, Annual Report to Parliament on Presidential Office Staff, January to December. So, are you not comparing two different things here?
No, it's one and the same. And that has been, and I have all the reports from 1994. It's one and the same. When the President reports under Section 11, it's the same as the Office of Government Machinery that the report talks about. Because I have here...
But this breakdown that you gave us,
yes,
it didn't include some of the departments that all come under the Office of Government Machinery.
It does.
I didn't hear you mention, for example, what's this department? One of the departments that always falls under the Office of Government Machinery. It's not coming to me now, but I didn't hear you mention quite a number of departments that all fall under the Office of Government Machinery. So is it not fair to assume that this letter that the President sent to Parliament in 2017 was not for the entire Office of Government Machinery?
I'm making the point to you that this has always been the format, that the President reports on the general staffing situation at the Presidency, which is what the nomenclature is, the Office of Government Machinery. And in any case, Kojo, even if we are to proceed on the basis that the Office of the President, this 998, is different from that of the Office of Government Machinery, it makes government's case worse.
But it also means that the increase that you suggested is not accurate. You suggested that there is going to be an increase of 616 staffers from 998 to 1,614. But if the 998 is for Office of the President and 1,614 is for the Office of Government Machinery, then your calculation is wrong, isn't it?
Again, the Minister of Information got it totally wrong. What the Minister of Information did was to claim that the 998 is a subset of the 2018 ceiling. The Minister of Information should have known, or ought to have known, that the 998 can only be compared to the 2017 figures, can only be in the 2017 category. You can't bring that to 2018. He got it totally wrong. And please come with me to the 2017 figures. I have the 2017 budget here, page 177. The ceiling of staff under the Office of Government Machinery is 953. 953.
953 in 2017.
Yes, in 2017.
Right.
So this report to Parliament reveals that government exceeded its ceiling by 45.
Okay.
Because they reported to Parliament 998.
Right.
The ceiling they gave themselves is 953. Now, if government is telling us today that, you know what, this was not a very comprehensive report and that we still have some more people, then it means that they even far exceeded their ceiling. And Ghanaians would even be more outraged.
Now,
so,
that figure there,
yes.
What's the description against it?
Office of Government Machinery, 953.
Right.
And that has always been the nomenclature in the budget. There is no allocation in the budget for the Office of the President in terms of the staff establishment and cost. It's all subsumed under the Office of Government Machinery.
Right. Okay, now I want to bring in Mr. Amakochum here. And on this specific clarification, the statement that was read by Mr. Opon Nkrumah yesterday, the Minister for Information, your minister, suggests that there is a clear difference between Office of General Machinery, Government Machinery and Office of the President. In fact, I can quote, it says, the executive arm of government is organized into ministries, departments, and agencies. The supervising outfit of the executive arm is referred to as Office of Government Machinery. It comprises 19 different units, one of which is the Office of the President. Now, which is it that has 1,614 members in 2000, that will have 1,614 staffers in 2019? Is it the Office of Government Machinery or the Office of the President?
Well, thank you very much. Good evening to yourself and then to my honorable friend here. I think that, to be honest with you, when the minority did their press conference, or even when I heard the honorable member of Parliament make mention of this number in Parliament during the budget debate, at a point I thought maybe they had done what we call premature ejaculation when it comes to politics. Because you see, I think that it's imperative that sometimes when we have this kind of conversations, it's situated in the fact. The fact is clear, it's very simple, that the Office of the President and the letter that was actually written that made reference to the 998 categorically stated the numbers that actually and the people that they actually comprised. Now, if you read the statement that came from the Minister of Information, it goes further to point out that there are 19 agencies that actually fall under the Office of Government Machinery. And then, of course, goes out to actually talk about the numbers, who represents us. We're talking about GIPC, we're talking about the population, National Population Commission, Ghana AIDS Commission, all sorts of other agencies, 19 of them. At the point, we also had the development authorities, for instance, the Northern Development Authority, under the Office of the Government Machinery, by virtue of the fact that the authority had not gone through Parliament at the time. So they were under the Ministry of Special Initiatives. So that is the number. Now, even if you go...
That is the number for Office of Government Machinery. 998.
No, the letter that my honorable friend here is referring to.
Yes.
It's a report that is mandated, that the president is mandated to supply.
In that report,
yes.
is the president referring to the Office of Government Machinery?
No, it's Office of the President.
Right.
Right. That's presidential staffers or people who actually work under the Office of the President. And another clarification, there are also other people who, by virtue of what they do, for instance, the fire service, the PWD Prestige, the Parks and Gardens, other agencies that are actually seconded to the Office of the President, who, by virtue of what they do and they work at the presidency on a daily basis, are added to these numbers. And they know that. They just left government. So, to be honest with you, when the conversation came out, and I was of the view that, okay, let's also do a drill down of even the juxtapose that against that of the NDC. And I just found out that just in 2016, the numbers that you put out there, that stated that the number at the presidency at the time was 692. They actually exceeded their budgetary allocation by 3.1 billion Ghana cedis. You understand? And so I was extremely surprised when, my good friend here actually wanted to go that route. The Auditor General's report in 2016 said that under President John Mahama at the time, the Office of Government Machinery, which at the instance had actually indicated that we're going to spend 783 million Ghana cedis, had it moved, after the mid-year review, to 1.1 billion cedis. It turned out that they actually went to 3 billion, and in the final analysis, the Auditor General says that they spend well in excess of 3 billion Ghana cedis. These are the people that we are talking about. So for me, if you juxtapose that to even the conversation that this is a big number and that is actually something that is actually bringing the public purse into some kind of pressure and all of those things, comparatively, then it shouldn't be coming from them.
To clarify, it was 2015 that they exceeded their budget, and in 2016 the finance minister had to limit.
Yes, but I'm talking about the Auditor General report in 2016.
Yes, it would have been talking about 2015.
Exactly,
yes.
That's the point. Right. So for me, I think that, to be honest with you, if they had known, we wouldn't have raised this issue. The point is that the president is minded by the Constitution to provide what is mandated in there, to supply the Speaker of Parliament with the number of people that work there. Now, when it comes to the budget, then you go through the line items that actually speaks to the various agencies that work under the Office of Government Machinery. As far as I'm concerned, really, this is neither here nor there. But if they want us to drill down to the numbers and to even juxtapose that against that of the NDC in terms of what was spent, we can look at the 27, and then here has a budget.
But there is still a discrepancy, isn't there? The 2017 budget talks about 953. Okay, and the president's report at the end of that year talks about 998. So how do you explain the difference?
But for me, as far as I'm concerned,
to make it even more serious, the president's figure is for the office of the president alone. But the 953 in the budget was for the entire Office of Government Machinery, 19 agencies, of which the Office of the President is one.
Yes.
Okay, so how do you explain that? It clearly means you went over.
No, but the point is that, I think that my friend here actually said that to be able to even do a proper comparison, you need the 2018 actual figures. Is that not what he said? Is that not the case?
Yes, but let's deal with 2017.
So for me...
No, we have 2017.
Let's deal with 2017.
We're talking about 2018.
No, 2017.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, that to be able to even do a clear comparison in terms of the figures and what actually, the nomenclature of this 953, you have to compare that to the actual figures that would come from the 2018.
Forgive me,
but the case here, and I think that we also have to make the point. They went further to make claims that by virtue of these numbers, there's actually a certain burden on the public purse, which is, of course, if people, citizens make some of these things. It's government's responsibility to listen and all of those things, right? But the truth of the matter is that if you look at, and I've made that claim, and I'm sure you can have answers to that, that if you do a comparison, and they are actually minded by the saving the public purse and making sure that we are prudent and all of those things, their track record speaks to something totally different. And that is a point that is also fair to make.
And that is the point you've made, and I think we'll address that with Mr. Okudzeto-Ablakwa. But I do want to clarify this, just so that we're clear in our heads. We are dealing with 2017 figures. 2017 says that according to the budget, 953 was the number presented in the budget for 2017 to be the ceiling for employment under Office of Government Machinery. One of the 19 units under the Office of Government Machinery, that is Office of the President, in December of that year reports 990, is it 998?
But I have told you. I have just said
please, we're not yet in 2016.
Yes,
we're still dealing with 2000. Sorry, we're not yet in 2018. We're still dealing with 2017.
But I have just said to you that
clearly you went over the figures you proposed for 2017, didn't you?
I'm glad that Sami and Co left government a few years ago. I have just told you that as part of even the numbers that is meant to go to the speaker, the people or individuals who work for agencies that have been seconded to the office of the president are added to these numbers. As I speak to you, I will not be able to know the exact numbers of ones that have actually been seconded. I mean, I'm sure that we can also always provide that. So that can be a very clear explanation that can actually bring clarity to the matter. So it is important that we move away from the discussion, even in terms of really the numbers, and also juxtapose that against how much is being spent, because they made some wild claims to the point that even it became offensive and trying to cast aspersions and saying that people are telling falsehood and it's a Sunday and all that, which as far as I was concerned was unnecessary, because it's a political discourse, it's a conversation, it's not personal.
We'll come back to the general conversation about size of government, but I think, Mr. Okudzeto-Ablakwa, you do have to acknowledge the point being made by Mr. Mwakuchum, that what matters here is how much it costs us. Yes, it does matter how many jobs you are creating and whether those jobs are necessary or not. That does matter. But I think the overwhelmingly urgent issue will be how much it is costing us as a people. And you've quoted how much the 1,614 projected for 2019 will cost us. But it must bring back to your memory that year, 2015, when under President Mahama, you were your Office of the Government Machinery overstepped their budget by over 100%, 3.6 billion cedis. So bearing that in mind, do you feel that the minority perhaps might be acting a bit holier than thou in this matter?
I'm glad that this matter comes up, and it's certainly a refuge for.
How can it be a refuge? I'm just making
for my brother, seeing that he's losing the debate on the staffing. We are here to discuss staffing.
No, but then it's a legitimate reason, because you stated that categorically. You did.
And the fact that when you promised to protect the public purse, the president was very clear at his inaugural address that he will protect the public purse. This is not how you protect the public purse. When in just one stroke, 953 is your ceiling.
He's not answering the question.
I'll answer that in a jiffy. You exceed this, you present to Parliament 998, and in the 2019 budget, you are headed to 1,614. At least now you concede that I did not conjure those figures. They are in the budget, your own budget that you brought to Parliament. We are going to see an increase in the cost from 79.3 million to 110 million cedis. That is substantial, and that's money we could use in investing in sectors that can help improve the livelihoods of our people. Now to the issue about the 2016 budget.
Legitimate billion overall.
Legitimate concern. But do you know, Kojo, that if you put together all of President Mahama's 4 years of Office of Government Expenditure, Office of Government Machinery Expenditure, it does not come anywhere near just 1 year, the 2017 allocation to the Office of Government Machinery under President Nana.
What is the number? Tell us.
What is it?
What is it?
It doesn't.
Are you talking about how much it costs the state or
the entire, yes. And I raised this during the 2017 budget debate. And I recall that Dr. Akoto said that, you know, our Office of Government Machinery is bigger. We've put a lot of priority projects, you know, the Special Development Initiative ministries under our OJ.
Allocation and expenditure is totally different things.
That is why. So at the end of the day, the fundamental issue is, did the Auditor General raise any wastage? Did the Auditor General raise any issue to do with corruption, or that the people did not get value for money?
But you overran your budget.
Yes.
That's why it even appeared in the audit.
Yes, you overran. You overran. But the Auditor General proceeded to audit the overrun expenditure, and there was nothing untoward. We accounted for every peso used. Nobody was queried by the Auditor General that you have misappropriated or you've misapplied or you've pocketed resources, so you should be sanctioned or prosecuted. There was nothing like that in the report. So yes, there was an overrun.
But if you draw a budget, Mr. Kujatobi, if you draw a budget and
I'm
you end
glad
up
that
missing,
you're falling for his.
You end up that won't work. If you end up missing your target by 3.6 billion cedis, does that not speak to a certain level of ineptitude in drawing a budget? How can you be wrong by 3.6 billion?
And that was actually reviewed twice.
You see, what we have to do is to go into the figures, go into the conditions that prevailed at the time. What happened? What were the matters that had to be addressed? There are times that you draw a budget and you cannot foresee what will occur. For example, there is an Ebola outbreak, Ghana becomes a hub, you are mobilizing and assisting, you're putting in place emergency response to prevent your country from being attacked and all of that. You could not have foreseen some of these matters. It happens every day.
But
I am telling you, I am telling you,
Ministry of
you see,
Health.
you see, I am telling you that at the end of the day, what matters is that the overrun, was it duly accounted for? It was. And so once it was, and the Auditor General did not query anybody, did not accuse anybody of going home with state resources, yes, I mean, I get you, it's a legitimate concern. We need to perfect the system of drawing our budgets so that we avoid these overruns. And that's why I am for any day some kind of fiscal regulation law that will prevent, right from the OGM to MDAs, from overrunning their budget. It's been happening year after year under successive governments. I'm willing to have that discussion any day on how we can stem that and even sanction officials who engage in that. But I mean, we do know that is not the issue. That is not the
legitimate issue because
that is not the matter.
Listen, you raised issues regarding putting a burden on the public purse, and of course protecting the public purse. Now, as far as I'm concerned, when we have these kind of conversations, then it should be anchored in some kind of values and even principles. You know, so in one breath, government has the right to overspend its budget by a whooping 100%, but in terms of numbers or people who are meant to do a particular work to make sure that government machinery is effective and everything, we have a totally different view of that. I don't really understand that. The most important thing for me, really, is that this particular government is focused on essentially executing its mandate and doing what it actually promised the Ghanaian people to do so. The reason why it's important that we also, if you like, scrutinize the conversation coming from our friends from the other side is the fact that they just left government a few years ago, and that is also legitimate. And sometimes when we bring these things up, it becomes as if that it's equalization. But if somebody,
I was going to caution about that.
Yes, and I don't want to.
You have made the point.
No, yeah, but
so I wish come back to addressing.
Yeah. So the point that I really want to make is that, listen, these things that we do, even in terms of budgeting, and the fact that sometimes we get it wrong and all of those things, is something that it's happened for time immemorial. For instance, I ask myself, sometimes we draw all these budgets, we do appropriation, we allocate monies to various agencies and all of those things. At the end of the year, they complain that the monies don't come to them, but we still run a deficit. For someone who has had 20 years or so in a corporate environment, it still doesn't sit well with me. I don't understand how it can happen. So, of course, I think that we need to find a very robust way of dealing with some of these things. In this day and age with technology and all of those things, it's imperative that we deal with it. But the truth of the matter is that it's political. And when it's political and your opponent makes certain assertions, then you have to also call them out and say that, listen, this is your track record and that's what we've done.
So let's now get back to the issue. You have made the point that you both got it wrong.
No. But that's what I'm saying. That I'm open. I'm open to see the numbers that would come in terms of what were the actuals in 2018. And even if we like further for proper good governance and all of those things, decide to find out exactly what these people are doing and what sort of efficiency.
Why are those figures not out there, by the way? The actual.
No, but I think it's meant to go back to. It's meant to go to Parliament, isn't it? It's meant to come back.
Yeah, next year.
Next year, it's meant to go back to Parliament.
The law and says that you report.
Exactly, and not
first
even
3 months.
And not even just leave it at that. To find out if well and truly these individuals are actually doing what they are meant to do, and that it's effective. There's proper key performance indicators and all of this. Then that is what would inure to us as a people. In terms of numbers, you can claim that 1,000 is a lot. Somebody would probably say that, listen, if you want to make it work efficiently and you want to impact people, you can increase it, you can decrease it, you can create all sorts of simulations for that to happen. But it's clear that even the previous administration did not have something like NAPCO, did not have the Special Initiatives Ministry and all of those things. And it's clear that these are agencies that have come to play a specific role, and that is exactly what they are doing.
So to clarify, and we've been saying that there are no figures for 2018, but in yesterday's press statement, Kojo Ponkruma did put out one figure. He said in 2018, established posts for Office of Government Machinery was 1,697.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the
figure he's
that's the ceiling.
That's the ceiling, yeah.
Established posts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you say the ceiling, and this is important for our audience to understand, that is the maximum that you can employ.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you've actually employed 1,697.
Yeah.
And then he says in 2019, it has rather been reduced to 1,614.
Yeah, I can clarify that.
Now, does this mean, does this mean that in 2019, that is your ceiling?
Yeah, so for instance, there are a number, I think about 54 or so, who were under the Special Initiatives Ministry who have been moved to the development authorities, because now they are authorities on their own. And there are some staff who are, by virtue of going on retirement and everything, are going to leave, and they're not going to be replaced. So the numbers in itself have actually dropped.
But it's the ceiling that has dropped.
Yes.
Not the actuals.
Yes.
Because these movements you're talking about,
but the things that the claim
that will affect the actual.
The claim was made that there's been an increment for around 600 or so, and there's going to be an increment. And that was the reason why the minister had to come out to clarify that that is not the case, right? So if there's other evidences that are not available to us right now, by all means, let's do so. But the point is that to throw it out there and now say that, well, this is what I think by looking at two figures, really, it's not the case. And then to actually go on and make a claim that the minister is actually peddling falsehood and is engaged in all sorts of things, really, for me, was a bit.
But you work at the Ministry of Information. This ceiling, 1,697. How close did we get to it in 2018? Can you tell us?
I think that we would have to wait for the final report.
Okay. Right. Well, when we come back, we're going to broaden the conversation and talk about the size of government. It has been an issue under the President Akufo-Addo administration from the very beginning. 110 ministers became 111. Now we're talking about presidential staffers, and we hear about how movements from one department to another change figures from here to there. But does that reduce the larger figure, the amount of money we're spending on government employees? Is it going up? Is it coming down? Can something be done? We'll talk about it when we come back from these messages. You're welcome back. It's PM Express. My name is Kojo Yankson, and tonight our guests, Samuel Kujato Ablakwa and Eric Amakuchum, are helping us break down this kerfuffle over how many presidential staffers and staffers at the Office of Government Machinery we have in 2019. Now, this is how I want us to wrap up on the general question of the size of government, because I've realized even from these debates that a lot of people are being moved around. I mean, forgive me, but yourself, Mr. Eric Amakuchum, used to be at the Ghana Export Promotion Authority. Today, you are a government spokesperson at the Ministry of Information. You can easily see how this obviously will be a bit tongue-in-cheek for some of us. The Ministry of Information itself has a minister and 2 deputies, but it also appears to have a government spokesperson. Perhaps more than one? Or are you the only one?
Well, I think that you don't have to focus on me as an individual. So you wanted to talk about...
It's an example that I want to raise, you know, the issue of how it appears that
but you want
created.
to... I think that is a conversation that we can all have. I don't have a challenge with that. For the purpose of this program, I decided to even look at our Constitution and, you know, the direct principles of state policy and what it is that really the state should do. And I just realized that there are a lot of things in there that we probably just don't do, or we haven't really apprised ourselves to. And in terms of how effective it is that our government machinery itself should be, in terms of even bringing the democracy down to the level of, to the grassroots, decentralization, the things that government is meant to do, and all of those things. And I feel that really we can look at it from a very big picture perspective in terms of how effective we have been, and even use the sort of agencies and the structure that we have as a people to inure to ourselves. So sometimes, and they have been in government before, sometimes you come into government and it's like you're minded by a certain manifesto, a certain urge to do certain things and to be able to get people to be able to follow that vision and execute what you want. And for us, we have to be very candid with ourselves. In certain parts of the way we have structured this, it hasn't just worked. You understand? It hasn't just worked by virtue of all sorts of things. For instance, that's why I like the president's conviction, for instance, that MMDCs, for instance, should be voted for, where you bring almost the democracy to the grassroots level and people make those decisions and all that. So it's a big conversation. As to the size of government, it's almost an ideological conversation where some people believe in small government, some people in big government, some people believe in the fact that government's intervention or government's actually hold on an economy or a state should be extremely minimal. Others believe that you need government to do all sorts of things. You now delve into all sorts of socialism and capitalism and all sorts of things. So it's a conversation.
Country.
It is
a big government ideology.
It is an ideological conversation, right? But for me, I think that what is most important is that once a party or a government is given a mandate to rule, and it believes that it needs X amount of ministers, for instance, and X amount of people to be able to push through a certain agenda, what the Ghanaian people would want, or what everybody would want, is of course to find an optimum way of using the same resources that we have and being able to prosecute the agenda that the government was voted in to do.
Right.
For me, the final analysis really is what matters. That if this government is able to go through the process and be able to execute all the things that we've promised to do in terms of the 1D, 1F, we've well advanced with the free SHS, we are doing all sorts of things in various sectors of the economy, then people will not be too minded by the numbers. But of course, if you're unable to deliver on the things that you said you would do, that becomes a bigger conversation. But we can continue. And for instance, some people have even suggested that we put a cap, for instance, in our constitution, which would mean some kind of amendment.
Let's give the last couple of minutes to you, Mr. Okudzeto Ablakwa. Size of government. We know where you stand on this, but is it not the results that matter?
You can achieve more with less, and that's what efficiency is. And President Akufo-Addo promised us an efficient government. So if you
define efficiency just like that.
I mean, and there can be only one meaning to efficiency. But the current framework where there is enormous role duplication and role conflict and all kinds of jobs for the boys, scenarios all over the place, it's not sustainable. Especially when in paragraph 10 of this budget, the Minister of Finance states quite emphatically that, quote, "We are not proud of the fact that there is still hardship in the country."
There is still.
There is still hardship in the country. The finance minister concedes. So all of these humongous numbers, 111 ministers, and all of these, now we are talking about thousands of office of government machinery workers. Where are we headed, and what's the result, what's the impact? So I say that let us now talk about capping. You see, we have given our leaders discretion. We now have a president who clearly believes in big government, big bureaucracy. We are not seeing the impact. It's not sustainable. Can we amend the constitution and place a ceiling on the number of ministers? Can we amend the Presidential Office Act and place a ceiling on the number of presidential staffers and other workers?
Well,
I think it is possible.
That's where the conversation will have
that's
to
what
go
we must do
next. Thank you both so much for your time with us. We've certainly appreciated it. My name is Kojo Youngson. Thank you for joining us. We're back tomorrow with even more on PM Express. Good night.